The history books got it wrong. They sanitized him, turned a ruthless empire into a footnote about art collection and steel. But Henry Clay Frick wasn't collecting pretty things. He was collecting entire industries. Picture this: 1870 in Pennsylvania, the Gilded Age is exploding into existence while railroad barons throw money at tracks and oil tycoons chase black gold. A 21-year-old with borrowed capital sees what they're all missing: coal, the foundation beneath every fortune, and he's about to corner it all. Frick didn't just enter the coal business, he weaponized it. While competitors fought over customers, he bought the supply chain. While they worried about margins, he controlled the entire game board. In less than a decade, he built a monopoly or so airtight that steel magnates had no choice but to play his price or watch his empire crumble. But here's where it gets interesting. Success made enemies, big ones. The one that could orchestrate your destruction from boardrooms in New York. When they came for him, and they did come for him, Frick did something that stunned every power player in America. He didn't just survive the attack, he turned it into the greatest pivot in industrial history. By the time the dust settled, Frick had transformed from Coal King to something far more dangerous: the man who could make or break titans. His methods became the secret playbook for hostile takeovers, market manipulation, and strategic restructuring that hedge funds still study today. This isn't just another rags to riches story. This is the blueprint for turning scarcity into power, enemies into assets, and crisis into complete market domination. Whether you're building or buying or burning down industries, Frick's formula works. So welcome to Dynasty's Designers, and let's extract the DNA of absolute power. So I'm going to be breaking it down into three categories, three parts. First, the rise. Second, when he has accumulated all that wealth. And then the third part is, what did he do with that wealth? So the first strategy is called forging the unseen empire. So before Henry Clay Frick became the name synonymous with industrial might, before he clashed with Carnegie, before the legendary wealth, he was an anomaly, a relentless outsider who saw opportunity where others saw only dirt. He wasn't looking for a quick flip. He was playing a long game, a game of domination through unyielding control. This was his initial genius play. And we call it the foresight monopoly. So don't just skate to where the puck is. Skate where it's going to be, and build your fortress there before anyone else, even when sees the game changing. This is about anticipating future mass demand and strategically positioning yourself to dominate it. So when Frick was 21 in the early 1870s, he didn't just see a local need for coal. He possessed an almost prophetic foresight. He saw the colossal nation building appetite for steel that was hurting towards America, and with it, insatiable demand for high quality cooking coal. He identified the Conesville seam not just as good coal, but as finite, superior resource critical for impending industrial explosion. While others were slow to react, Frick moved with urgent, calculated precision, acquiring land and scaling coke production. He wasn't just reacting, he was architecting for a future he clearly saw. So the problem, if you ignore this strategy, is that the businesses fixated on only today's market are tomorrow's dinosaurs. Think of companies that dismissed the internet or ignored shifting consumer values. The loss isn't just market share, it's relevance, then survival. They fail because they lack the vision to prepare for that inevitable next wave. And how can you apply this? Well, carve out your serious time for deep trend analysis. What will be the Coke, the indispensable element in your industry 5, 10, 20 years from now? Identify the future critical need and start laying the groundwork now to be dominant solution when the future arrives. I'll give you a clue. AI. All right, the next strategy is called the keystone lock-in. Imagine controlling the one thing everyone in your industry desperately needs but can't easily get. That's the keystone lock-in. It's about identifying the critical, scarce resource, the choke point, and seizing it. As the steel revolution began its reign, Frick understood the true bottleneck wasn't just coal, it was cooking coal, the purified fuel essential for blast furnaces. And not just any cooking coal, but the premium veins of the Connellsville seam. While others hesitated, Frick moved with fierce precision, buying up vast tracts of his prime land. He wasn't just aiming to be a supplier. He strategically positioned H.C. Frick and Company to become the dominant, almost monopolistic force. Even Andrew Carnegie, the future steel titan, would become heavily reliant on Frick's coke. Frick controlled the tap. He created an unthinkable chokehold. The businesses, blind to their critical dependencies, are constantly at the mercy of suppliers. They face volatile prices, potential shortages, and crippling inability to scale on their own terms. Imagine steel mill, ready to produce, but unable to secure the lifeblood fuel. That's a recipe for failure. Look at your industry. What is the Conesville coal seam? Is it a specific talent, proprietary technology, crucial raw material, key distribution network? Your mission is to identify it and then devise a strategy to gain significant influence or control over that keystone. Don't be just a player. Own a piece of the game board itself. All right. The next strategy is called the quiet accumulator. This isn't just about the flashy speculative gambles. It's about the relentless, systematic reinvestments of profits back into the core businesses and strategically adjacent ventures. It's about fueling organic growth, methodically acquiring assets, and quietly, patiently consolidating market share with unwavering effect. So, Frick's initial empire, H.C. Frick Company, was built brick by brick on this very principle. He started small with borrowed capital, but every dollar of profit was, as a rule, plowed back into the earth, buying more of the rich Connellsville coal lands, constructing more efficient coke ovens, improving his infrastructure. There were no wild diversions. It was disciplined, almost silent compounding of assets and operational capacity. Year after year, his company grew larger, more dominant, more efficient. This patient, persistent accumulation of productive power was the bedrock of his eventual immense wealth and influence. The business that produced siphoning of all profit short-term payouts rather than strategically reinvesting invite stagnation. They fall behind in technology. They seek ground to move forward, investing competitors. And they weaken their ability to withstand economic shocks. They eat their seed corn. So, how does this apply to you? Take a hard look at your profit allocation. Are you sufficiently feeding the engine of your core business? Or are you systematically reinvesting to fortify your foundations, to innovate, to expand strategic assets? Identify one key area where consistent, disciplined reinvestment today will yield dominant returns tomorrow. That's why it's called the quiet accumulator. And the next strategy is called the silent integration. This isn't about loud headline grabbing takeovers, not at first. The silent integration achieves the immense power of vertical control, owning multiple stages of production through quieter strategic moves that lock in supply, guarantee quality, and slash costs almost by stealth. So, before Frick became a chairman of Carnegie Steel, a monolith of vertical integration, his early work with H.C. Frick and Company was a masterclass in this. He began with Coke, then instead of immediately trying to rival established iron and steel makers, he focused on becoming their absolutely indispensable supplier. He invested in the railroads needed to move his Coke. He optimized his process to be the most efficient. He was building an invisible empire of influence, ensuring his company was crucial to steel production, that he held immense power long before any formal mergers. He was a silent conductor of an unthinkable symphony of supply. So, what happens if you ignore this strategy? Well, if you're entirely reliant on others for key parts of your production or service, you're exposed. Price hikes from suppliers directly hit your margins. Quality dips can tarnish your brand. Supply chain break can halt your operations. You're building on someone else's land. But how does this apply to you? Map your value chain. Where are your most vulnerable or to external forces? Could strategic partnership, minority stakes, or even developing smaller in-house capabilities in critical areas give you more control, better costs, or superior quality over time without needing a massive upfront buyout? And the next strategy, the cost crucible. This is a relentless, unwavering obsession with driving down production costs to their absolute rock bottom. It's about forging a business to so lean it can not only survive but thrive when competitors are bleeding out. Henry Frick treated costs like an enemy to be vanquished. From his first foray into the Coke business, he was fixated on efficiency. He invested in any technology like improved beehive Coke ovens that could wring more output from less input. He pushed his labor force hard for productivity. This wasn't just about penny pinching. It was about building a financial fortress. His agency, Frick and Company, could sell Coke profitably at prices that would bankrupt less disciplined operators. This ruthless cost control made him an invaluable, if sometimes feared, partner for Carnegie. It was a war machine in itself and designed for market domination. The business with bloated costs are fragile. They might look good when the market is booming, but the first sign of a downturn or a price war sends them spiraling. High overheads are like carrying lead weights in a race. Profit margin erodes, innovation stalls, and vulnerability becomes critical. How can you apply this strategy? Well, subject your operations to a cost. No department, no process is sacred. Where is the fat? Where are the inefficiencies? Can you deploy new technologies or smarter process to drastically cut your cost of goods sold or service delivery without gutting the quality of your customers' demand? Become the leanest fighter in your weight class. By the turn of the century, Frick's quiet accumulation, his strategic foresight, and his ruthless cost control had built an empire. He wasn't just a player, he was a linchpin. He had amassed unthinkable power, a formidable force that would soon clash with the towering ambitions of Andrew Carnegie himself. The stage was set for confrontation that would shape the industrial America and shatter legacies. Now you understand how he accumulated that wealth. Now we're going to be going to the part two, which is called the Clash of Titans, Cost of Conquest. The silent empire had become too big, too powerful to remain in shadow. Frick, the operational genius, found himself linked with Andrew Carnegie, the grand strategist and public face of steel. Their alliance was pure alchemy, combining Frick's relentless efficiency with Carnegie's expansive vision. That is a good partnership. Together, they built the largest steel company in the world. But beneath the surface of the industrial marvel, the dangerous friction was building. The two titans, two visions, one ultimate prize, absolute control. So here's the strategy. It's called the calculated confrontation. The strategy acknowledges that while cooperation is ideal, there are moments where your vital interests demand a firm, even confrontational stance. It's about using your leverage, unflinchingly, to secure what's non negotiable. This is high stakes and not without its perils. Frick's relationship with Andrew Carnegie was a study in adversarial synergy. They needed each other, but their wills constantly clashed. When Frick felt Carnegie was undervaluing his company contribution or trying to exert unfair control, like the infamous Ironclad Agreement, where Carnegie tried to force Frick to sell his shares cheaply, Frick didn't just crumble. He took Carnegie, the most powerful industrialist of his day, to court. This wasn't a petty squabble. It was a calculated confrontation to protect his perceived value, a genius play for equity. But the ultimate, most tragic illustration of this strategy came during the 1892 Homestead strike. Frick, as chairman of Carnegie Steel, faced a union demanding better wages and conditions. He saw that it was a direct threat to cost efficiencies he had painstakingly built, a challenge to managerial costs. His response was unthinkable. In its ruthlessness, locking out workers, deploying armed guards, culminating in a violent bloodbath that forever stained his reputation. It secured a management control but an unimaginable human cost. This was the dark side of unyielding will to dominate. So the unseen cost of ignoring this is business that shy away from every tough negotiation, that concede on core principles too easily, often find themselves on losing end. Their value gets chipped away. They accept bad deals. However, the massive pitfall, as Homestead showed, is that confrontation without limits can lead to catastrophic, irreversible damage to lives, reputation, to the soul of the enterprise. The short-term win can be a long-term poison. So how can you apply this strategy? Identify critical area of your core interests and see where it's being challenged. While always seeking constructive solution first, you must define your non-negotiables. Be prepared to stand your ground strategically, leveraging your position, but always calculate a full spectrum of potential costs, financial, reputational, and human, before escalating to open conflict. Understand the difference between strategic ruthlessness and self-destructive brutality. The fallout from Homestead, combined with escalating personal battles with Carnegie, would ultimately lead to a split. Frick, the architect of their combined power, was cast out, but not broken. He had built an empire, seen it crumble and survive. The question was, what would he do next? Would the kingmaker build a new kingdom or redefine his legacy entirely? Then he started to work on his legacy, the reinvention. So, cast out from the steel empire he helped build, Frick was a man at a crossroads. Many would have retreated licking their wounds, but Frick, ever the strategist, simply shifted his focus, applying the same ruthless logic and discerning eye to a new portfolio, his own future and his place in history. This was his profound ultimate reinvention. And the strategy is called, wait, hold on. Let me just take a sip. Unsentimental restructuring. So, view your business as a portfolio. Some assets shines, others drag. The unsentimental restructuring means objectively assessing every part of your enterprise and being prepared to prune, divest, or radically overhaul underperformers. Regardless of history or emotional attachment, it's about focusing resources where they generate maximum returns. So here's where Frick applied it. Frick was a builder, but he wasn't a hoarder of inefficient operations. His primary metric was return on investment, ROI. When he took the helm as chairman of Carnegie Steel and later applied this to his own vast personal investments. He brought this cold financial logic to the entire empire. If a mill was lagging, if a process was outdated, if an entire division wasn't pulling its weight, Frick advocated for decisive action, be it modernization, consolidation, or shutdown. His decisions were guided by the numbers on the ledger and strategic advantage, not by nostalgia for what was. This ensured the overall machine ran at peak profitability. He could even apply it to his own reputation, understanding that old battles sometimes need to be shed. What happens if you ignore this strategy? Well, companies that cling to the deadwood, underperforming products, outdated divisions, inefficient processes, suffer from a slow drain of energy, capital, and management focus. This organizational cholesterol clogs the arteries of innovation and makes the entire entity weaker and less agile. The failure to prune eventually sickens the whole tree. And how does this apply to you? Well, conduct a ruthless audit of your projects, your product lines, your business units. Which are the stars? Who are the stars? Which are the question marks? And which are the dogs? Develop objective criteria and be prepared to make tough calls. And there's never an easy time to make hard decisions. Redirect those freed up resources to fuel your winners and innovate for the future. And the next strategy is called the capital magnet. This is about building such an impeachable reputation for financial astuteness, operational reliability, and consistent returns that capacity actively seeks you out, often on terms far better than your competitors can dream of. So when did Henry Frick apply this? Well, Henry Frick understood from day one that credibility was currency. Credibility, reputation. As he built H.A. Frick and the company, he wasn't just focused on output. He was meticulous about his financial management, religiously reinvesting profits and demonstrating unwavering growth. This discipline didn't go unnoticed. It allowed him to secure a crucial early loans from the astute financier and Judge Thomas Mellon, who wasn't known for backing speculative ventures. Mellon backed Frick because Frick projected absolute competence and reliability. When Frick needed funds to expand his Coke empire or adapt new technologies, his track record made him a prime investment. Even after the public controversies, his demonstrated financial acumen meant that smart money still trusted him. A business with a shaky financial reputation or history of broken promises will always struggle. Loans will be expensive, if available at all. Investors will be wary. Growth capital, the oxygen of expansion and innovation, becomes scarce. This can be a death sentence. So how does this apply to you? Well, how is your financial reputation perceived both internally and externally? Are you known for delivering on projections, for transparent accounting, for prudent fiscal management? Cultivate these attributes relentlessly. Become the venture that smart money trusts implicitly. The next strategy is called the adversarial alliance. This strategy is about pragmatically leveraging partnerships, even with individuals or entities you find difficult or competitive. If that alliance provides critical access to markets, capital, or expertise you currently lack, it's about managing friction or mutual gain. So when did Frick apply this? Well, Frick and Carnegie partnership is a textbook example. Their personalities were like oil and water. Their business relationship was a recurring storm of disagreements, overpricing, control, and vision. Carnegie, the ebullient promoter, Frick, the stoic operator. Yet for many crucial years, the volatile alliance was outstandingly lucrative for both. Frick and the Frick Company supplied the unmatched coke that fueled Carnegie's steel ascent. Frick, in turn, secured a massive, reliable customer, and later as a chairman of Carnegie Steel, a vast stage for his formidable managerial talents. Despite their eventual split, their collaboration created an unimaginable wealth and industrial power. Frick knew that Carnegie needed his Coke. Carnegie knew Henry was an operational genius, and the same Wall Street analysts who mocked their personal clashes, they later profited handsomely from the company's frank investment built. So, avoiding valuable collaborations purely due to personality clashes or fear of disagreement is a direct route to missed opportunities. You might miss out on a critical market entry, game-changing technology, or vital expertise. The inability to navigate complex interpersonal dynamics for strategic gain leads to isolation and, worse, stagnation. So how does this apply to you? Well, is there a competitor, a challenging supplier, or even an internal rival with whom an alliance, however uneasy, could unlock significant strategic value? If so, approach it with clear eyes, firm boundaries, and a laser focus on the mutual strategic benefit, managing the inherent tensions with calculated precision. The next strategy is called the legacy polish. Beyond the balance sheets and market share, this is about consciously investing endeavors by enduring quality and cultural significance. It's about understanding that true dynasty building involves shaping public perception and crafting a legacy that transcends mere commerce. So, Henry, the titan of industry, the man known for his uncompromising business tactics, also became one of America's most significant art collectors. His pursuit of old master paintings and exquisite decorative arts was not whimsical pastime. It was executed with the same rigor and demand for supreme quality that he brought to his Coke and Steel empires. Critically, he didn't just collect for himself. He meticulously planned for his collection to become the Frick Collection in New York City, a public museum established for the purpose of encouraging and developing the study of the fine arts. This was a deliberate strategic move to craft an enduring cultural legacy, one that might offer a different, more redefined narrative than his industrial career alone, especially after bruising events like Homestead. This industrial war machine also had an artistic soul. Leaders and business defined solely by profit without a thought of to broader societal impact or enduring values risk a flat, easily forgotten, or even negative legacy. They may struggle to attract talent seeking purpose beyond paycheck. Their story ends with the last financial report. And how can you apply this? Well, think beyond this quarter earnings. What is the legacy polish for your business or your professionally? It could be through championing exceptional design, making significant contributions to your community, fostering ethical leadership that echoes through your industry, or supporting arts and education. What enduring mark will you leave? And there it is. 10 powerful, often unthinkable business strategies drawn directly from the brutal, brilliant playbook of Henry Clay Frick. From seizing unseen opportunities and building an efficient war machine to navigating brutal confrontations and ultimately polishing a legacy that endures far beyond factory floor. These aren't just historical anecdotes. They are living principles capable of creating immense value and competitive advantage if understood and applied with intelligence and, more importantly, courage. This is what we do here in Dynasty Designers. We unearth the potent, often unwritten rules of building lasting empires. We give you the strategic DNA of the world's most formidable business figures. So if you're serious about not just participating in the market, but shaping it, if you're driven to build something that echoes beyond your lifetime, then these are the kinds of building secrets we dissect in every single episode. The simple is yours. If you want more lessons, business strategies like these, hit the subscribe and share if you found value. Now, with that being said, if you haven't already, hit that bell button so you get notified every time I release a video. With that being said, see you next time. Peace.